All right, you guys. Been thinking a lot about what's going on. Trying to formulate my thoughts as I pace around the house. But I'm gonna talk with you guys a little bit about pertaining to what's going on in the world right now. And maybe like some personal experience. I'm very anxious, like before making these, so okay. Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. Oh man. So I've been very, let's just say, stressed out lately. I'm normally pretty stressed out all the time. I'm a pretty anxious, worrying person all the time. But lately it's been like, I have moments where it's completely unbearable. For example, the other day we were hiking, me and my best friend, to our usual Mount Charleston spot. And halfway up, we got into this conversation and I fell into like this loop of like, oh my gosh, we need to do something, fix something. Up in the middle of Mount Charleston, mind you, so like, what can we do up there, you know? But I couldn't control that like worrying feeling, and I was like, dude, we have to go back. We got into like a little argument because he's like, really, you're gonna like, you can't like just let that go for a moment. I was like, no, this is like really serious. This is very, very serious what's going on. And I feel like people don't really like grasp the full extent of the seriousness of this situation that we're in, you know. And I feel like I blame that partly in due to our entitled attitude that the president gives off, and his followers are like, yes, this is America, we can do whatever the fuck we want, who cares if we get other people sick and make this pandemic worse and our economy shuts down. So there's that school of thinking that happens in this country that really like makes the situation honestly accelerate and get 10 times worse. And then there's the other school of thinking that is like, okay, well, what can we do? America's gonna be fine. We're just gonna party, like, you know, like it's not a big deal. We're gonna go to just throw house parties and stuff and spread the virus, and hospitals are filling up and people are dying. So then there's that school of thinking. And here we are today about to like shut down to basically March level lockdown regulations. And our economy is like, just like crumbling. Like the government can't just keep printing money. I mean, they can, but it's gonna do horrible things for our financial system. Things are gonna get so expensive. Wages aren't going up. Like, I don't even know where to begin. So I'm gonna try to focus on just one thing today. And like, let me just our political system right now is so incredibly broken, and it's due to several things. I'm gonna just go ahead and say, I guess the topic of this video would be how since the 1970s there's been I want to call it like a liquidation on America's economy. Like there's been like a get it for the best price, make it, you know, like cheap. Everything is like changing. Like America used to be all about, in the 1950s after World War II, used to be all about, we are the shining example of what a modern society run on capitalism is supposed to be. You know, the rich pay taxes, which is kind of gone by the wayside these days. The rich paid their very fair share in taxes, up to a 90% cap on their income, like, which made that society possible if you were white. Make no mistake, America was by no means perfect. There were a lot of, they felt that that life was only entitled to white people, and then, you know, minorities, colored folks. I don't know if I use that word properly. I don't talk about this kind of stuff a lot. People of color were put into service style positions of labor, you know, to serve that, you know, consumer culture with all these fancy like restaurants and appliances and things, right? So I guess I can touch on that in another video because I'm getting off track like I always do. But basically, since the 70s and America's kind of entanglement in wars and things, we weren't able to sustain our currency anymore, and we had to start devalue it. So back in the day, before 1971, every dollar was backed by a certain ounce of gold. I'll put it up here somewhere. I'll look it up. But it was a certain ounce. So you could go in and go to the bank and be like, hey, I'm giving you $20, give me my gold. That doesn't happen anymore. So America, basically, because of their massive military and trying to compete with Russia during the Cold War for military dominance of the world, they basically just ran through their entire gold. And they were like, well, you know what? We have this massive military now. We're going to basically police the entire world with our military and force them to buy oil on the world market in dollars. So all these countries that don't have oil, which is most of them, they have to manufacture some sort of goods to send to the United States so that the United States sends them US dollars, and then they go to Saudi Arabia, who are the leaders of OPEC, the oil basically cartel of the world. More on that later. But they basically go to Saudi Arabia and they're like, all right, give us oil with the US dollars that we got from the US for making all these manufactured goods, so now we can run our factories and cars and things in our country, right? So they went with their military and went to Saudi Arabia and said, listen, we'll protect you militarily, we'll make sure that the region is stable for you, you know, so that you can run your oil company out of your country, and then you can sell the world oil in dollars. So that's how the United States was able to basically like create a whole world order for itself. So because of that and our massive military to sustain such a global presence, we like went through all our gold. So we went through all our gold, and then we started basically inflating our currency, and billionaires are basically like, oh, well, if we're inflating our currency and we can just print more, and then like banks started saying like, oh, well, if the Federal Reserve can just print more dollars and bail us out whenever we do like risky financial like practices and things like that, and like basically mess with people's mortgages and lives, and basically like more on that in another video. You know what, let's talk about it for a second. Banks basically like orchestrated an entire system that benefits them, so that they're slowly like siphoning all the wealth from poor people, and like this whole capitalist society has turned very toxic and very like greedy. Only really, it was always about greed, but it has like really, its greed has exceeded certain points where like our wealth inequality in this country is the highest it's been in like over 100 years. And that just happened within the last like, you know, it really grew sharply after the 2007 recession, but it's been growing steadily since basically like the 70s, I would say, when this whole neoliberalism, bing, things started happening. And sorry, I smoked a lot of weed before this, and okay, so this whole neoliberalism economic way of thinking has been basically kind of eroding our wealth as a middle class. Like our middle class is non-existent now because, you know, these banks and these global corporations are basically like just using America as like a policing machine force to extract wealth from basically the whole world. There's little care and concern for what happens to the people if there's a pandemic. because they're like basically looking at it as like we're just expendable, like they're just trying to take all of our money and like, you know, basically bankrupt America and then go to the next country that wants to, you know, these corporations are so big and global, and the banks are so global that they have no loyalty to the country of origin. So once shit hits the fan here, and like they give us like the most fucking basic healthcare, charge us up the ass, put all that money in offshore accounts and other things, do all these horrible things to us, like try to take away our unemployment, try to do all these horrible things that belong to us, incarcerate our people. They're just gonna like take all their money and move it to another country. And that's what, like, you don't see that shit on the news, like, and people like will sit here and watch CNN about the coronavirus, and I'm like, dude, you guys are still like not even getting a good response. Like, you're just getting like the little sound bites of things, but like the situation is very severe, and it's because of those neoliberalism policies and that greed that sort of really took over our government and our companies and everything. Like, there was no America, in my opinion, was founded on entrepreneurship and slavery, but the spirit of what made America great has existed throughout the history of this country. And that was like that entrepreneurial, like, I'm here because I can like make start a business or create something, or, you know, leave a mark and, you know, build a life here for myself. In fact, Thomas Jefferson wanted this country to be basically like an agrarian utopia where everyone had their own plot of land. Of course, slavery was legal at this time, so the white man could have a plot of land with a slave and raise a family on their own plot of land, and they didn't have to depend on manufacture. You know, they didn't have to go work in a factory, because they saw Great Britain and were like, oh my god, the people are miserable, they all work in factories. Jefferson was like, I don't want that for this country. It doesn't need to turn into a giant factory. Everyone can just kind of live peacefully on farms and, you know, fight off Native Americans and shit. But you guys get the picture. So it's changed over time into, like, you know, it's still in the early 1900s was like a place of, you know, innovation, you know, and the 1950s when, you know, we had all these like appliances and new technologies and things, and it has had its periods of like, okay, we're creating something good, we're an example to the rest of the world, but then it like it loses its way. I wouldn't say it has lost its way completely. I feel like America has a chance to rise from these ashes and become something great again, like be a good place where you can come and start a business. Quick backstory, my family, I was born in Colombia, South America. My entire family is Colombian. I moved to this country with my mom for that entrepreneurial kind of experience. You know, I was meant to go to college, you know, get a degree, start a business, this and that. And I kind of just, after a while, after just kind of seeing what is going on, I'm like, no, a college degree isn't enough anymore. You have to do something different. And here I am today on YouTube trying to do something different, and hopefully reach people on my, I would say, experiences and my thoughts, things that I think about constantly. And this has been a great outlet for me to get those thoughts out. So anybody that is watching, thank you for sharing this moment with me, because it also helps me as well to release. Thank you so much for watching, guys.